Hello everybody and welcome to a Minecraft plugin tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a nickname system as shown on the screen here. Now these systems are used in servers like Hypixel and countless others to disguise staff members or YouTubers or stuff like that. And I've always thought a system like this is really cool. And today I'm going to be showing you a method of doing this which doesn't require any packets or massively complicated code. So I have here an empty project. It's literally just I have my main class here and I'm just going to code this from scratch and you can follow along. Now for the purposes of this tutorial I'm going to be writing this in Java. However, if you want to write it in Kotlin, that's perfectly fine. It will work just the same. But before we get started, it's useful to understand how systems like this actually work. Now essentially, with every player that connects on your server, they have a game profile that is attached to them. And this profile contains all of the information associated with that player. So like their username, their skin, their cape, when they last logged on, stuff like that. And the way that this nickname system works is it essentially takes that profile and inserts in our own information, essentially tricking the other players on the server that it's a different player entirely. So I'm going to be showing you how we can do that and also how we can query the Mojang API to get the information of any Minecraft player. I do just want to make a quick note though that this method that I'm using this is only available in paper or forks of paper. So if you're using Spigot or Bucket just on its own, it's not going to work. So I would really recommend that you upgrade to paper. It's kind of the default nowadays, but yeah, just keep that in mind that this will only work using the paper API. So with that being said, we may as well just get started. I'm going to get started by making just a nickname class which holds the data of the nickname. So I want players to be able to change their skin and their username. So this data class is just going to hold fields for those. So I'm going to create it in a new nickname passage and I'm just going to call it nickname. So this nickname is going to have a username and it's going to have a skin. Now the way that skins are represented in Minecraft is there is a long texture value and a long signature value, which are both strings. So we need to have both of those if we want it to work correctly. So texture and signature. So I'm just going to make a constructor which has these fields. And string signature. Oh, I cannot type. This name is name. This texture is texture. And this signature is signature. And then, of course, we need getters for all of these. So get name, get texture, get signature. There we go. And set name, set texture, and set signature. So in terms of what the nickname is actually going to store, this is pretty much it. We don't really need any other information. So let's actually start getting into how we're going to modify this. So I'm going to create a handler class for this. So nickname handler. And I'm just going to make a method which is something like set nickname. And we're going to need a player and a nickname. So let's start by formatting our fake game profile. So the first thing we're going to need is the actual skin property. So let's make a property. Be sure to import the Mojang properties here. Let's just call it skin. It's going to be a new property called textures. And it's going to be the texture and the signature. And then this is where it gets a bit finicky. The way Minecraft has implemented this is they use what's called a multi-map, which I've never ever seen before, but it is whatever. So just bear with me that this does look a bit ugly, but we have to do it. So a list multi-map, which is in the com.google class, and it's going to be a map of string to property. Let's just call it multi-map. And then you want an array list multi-map dot create. and that will create us a new multi-map. And then inside this map, we can just put textures and our skin property. Now we can create our fake game profile. So game profile, profile, new game profile. Now this game profile takes the player UUID, so we can just do player.getUniqueID. You can set this to a different UUID, but for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to keep the player's UUID the same. And then it takes the name they want to disguise as, so nickname getName. And then we want to make a new property map of our multi-map. Again, with property map, make sure it's the Mojang one. So we've created our new game profile. Now all we need to do is set it to the player. So we're going to cast our player to craft player. And then we're going to get the handle. And then game profile equals our new profile. Now this is where it can get a little bit tricky. Usually what happens here is you have to send a bunch of packets, like a respawn packet and so on and so forth, to update it to all the other players, but Paper provides a lovely bit of code to be able to update it without needing to send any packets yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to get their player profile, which is not the same as a game profile. So player.getPlayerProfile, then update, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We want to then accept a sync, player set player profile, referencing the method with the 2 colons here. And we also have a runnable, which we can just run with the scheduler. So run task, and we need an instance of our plugin, which I didn't consider. So let's just get an instance of our plugin. So I'm just going to make a constructor to get the instance of our main class. Testing plugin. This.plugin is plugin. And then as you can see, this is now referencing our plugin. And that's it. That is literally how you set the new game profile. All we need to do now is create a way for the player to actually be able to, select a nickname. So you can interface this however you want. It could be a GUI or a command or an event or whatever you want. But I'm just going to make it a very simple command. So I'm even going to use the bucket command dispatcher. So I'm just going to make my command public boolean on command sender command string label string array args. I'm just going to return false. Now, of course, to actually apply a nickname, the sender needs to be a player. So if they're not an instance of player, and I'm also going to make a variable here, then I'm just going to return false. Otherwise, we now have a player variable which we can use. If you're not using a Java version that's above, I think it's Java 17 where this was introduced, then you can just remove this variable and create it here by just casting sender. Just like that, and you have the player variable. So this is where it's really up to you how you want to format the command. I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm just literally going to have a command where they can do like /nickname name skin, and then it will just set the nickname with the 2 args. I'm not going to bother doing any checking or whatever because this is just a very basic plugin tutorial. So the name that they want is going to be the first argument, and the skin name they want is going to be the second argument. Right, now we need to actually query the Mojang API to get the skin data from the username that they put in. So I'm going to create a utility class, utils, and I'm just going to call it Mojang API. And this is where it gets really cool. So Mojang provides us with some REST APIs that we can use. So for example, this one, you can provide a name and it will return their profile ID. And then the session API, which you can use their ID to get all their data. So this is the skin texture and the skin signature, which we're going to need to use. If you're curious, this texture value actually is a base64 JSON. So you can literally decode it and you can see it has other information like timestamp and the actual location of the texture file. So first things first, let's actually get these strings into our code. So this is the first URL that we're going to need. So I'm just going to make this static final string, and let's call this profile URL. And I'm just going to put that there, and I'm going to replace the name with a placeholder, so name. And I will do the same with this session server URL as well. Okay, I will actually put these on separate lines so you can see what's going on. And once again, we'll replace this UUID here with UUID. And it is important to have this unsigned equals false at the end. If I remove it from this URL, we can just see what it actually does. As you can see, it won't give us the signature, and the signature is very important. So don't worry, both of these URLs will be in the description for you to copy and paste. So let's get started with actually querying these URLs. So the first method I'm going to make is going to be this session URL where we already have the UUID. So public static string array get skin data from UUID. And let's just have the UUID as a string. And let's just do a null check. So if UUID is null, then we're just going to return null. So we're going to actually put our query code inside a try catch, and I'm just going to catch exception because I'm lazy and I need a return null at the end here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a URL. So URI.create from our string, so session URL, and then to URL. Now we actually want to replace the UID with our UID, so we can just do replace UID with UID. So from this URL, let's create a URL connection, URL.open connection. Oops, I've actually put 2 equal signs here. And then connection.connect. So now we need to actually pass the data that is returned. So the first thing we have is an input stream reader, which will read the bytes that is returned. So reader is new input stream reader. And what we're going to do is we're going to cast to input stream our connection.getContent. So because this REST API returns a JSON object, we can turn this reader into a JSON object. So JSON object data equals JSON parser dot parse reader dot get as JSON object. It's important to note, by the way, that these JSON objects and JSON parser are imported from Google JSON, which should be bundled with the Paper API. So let's have a look at what data we actually have. We don't really care about the ID or the name. We care about this value and signature properties. So we need to actually enter the properties, which we can see is a JSON array with JSON objects inside of it. So let's just get the properties for now. So it's going to be a list of JSON elements. Let's just call it properties, data, get JSON array, properties, and then as list. And I need to import list. And then what we're going to do, just to be safe, because I don't actually know if there can be multiple properties, but we're just going to loop through them and check if the name is textures to make sure we're in the right one. So for JSON element in properties, let's turn this element into a JSON object. So JSON object, JSON is element gets its JSON object. And then let's just get the name. So string name is JSON.get name get a string. And then if the name is not there, so if the name is null, or the name is not textures, So if the name is not textures, we want to ignore it. So we'll just continue in the loop. So now that we know it's the right one, we can actually extract the data. So it's just value and signature as strings. So string texture is JSON.get value.get a string, and string signature is JSON.get signature.get a string. So then what we're going to do is we're just going to return a string array of these two pieces of data. So return new string array, texture, signature. And there we go. Now, unfortunately, this is not it, because this is a UID, and what the player is giving us is a name. So I'm going to create another method, which is the same, but it's get skin data from name, and we're going to have name here instead. Now, fortunately for us, this API is much simpler. It's literally just an ID and a name. So all we need to do really is check whether the ID is here, and if it is, just return it. So just like before, let's open a try and catch. I'm just going to eprint stack trace and then return null if it is unable to execute the code. And I'm actually going to copy and paste the JSON parsing that we have here just into this try block up here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the session URL with our profile URL. And I'm going to replace the name with name. Now all we need to do is just check if the ID is here, and then if it is, we can pass it into our UUID method. So string ID is data.get ID, get a string, and then if ID is null, return null because it wasn't there. Otherwise, we can return get skin data from UUID and then ID. And there we go. That is our querying to the API done. So I'm just going to go back to my command, and now I can get the data from the name that they give me. So string array data is Mojang API .get skin data from name, and then we're going to put the skin name in here. And then we can create our nickname with the name, texture, and signature, which we have from the name and the data. So nickname is new nickname, name, data 0, data 1. And now we have the nickname, we can set nickname, player, nickname. And there we go, that's our command done. So just to recap, the name is the first argument, the skin is the second argument. We're going to query the Mojang API to get the UID, and then the UID will get the string data, the texture and the signature, which we then put into our nickname, and then we apply it up here. So let's actually register our command and our handler. So I'm just going to register my nickname handler in the onEnable. So nickname handler is new nickname handler, and then I need to pass in the plugin, and then I'm going to register my command as well. So get command nick, so it will be /nick, and then set executor handler. And I need to put the command in my plugin.yml as well before I forget. So commands nick. And this should be everything that we need. So I'm going to start up the server and we'll see if this works. And I should be able to hopefully do /nick and then any name that I want and someone else's skin that I want to use as well. Okay, so I actually made a pretty embarrassing typo. It said that the data was null, and the reason is because I'm getting values here instead of value. So, whoopsies. So let me just correct that, and that should be that fixed. Alright, let's try that again, shall we? Now I should be able to nickname as anyone I want. And there we go. As you can see, I am now Steve. And the cool thing about this is that it actually gets the correct cape as well. So if I nick as a different account, as you can see, it takes their cape as well. So just to show you that this works how you would expect it would, I'm just going to get another account online. and we'll see what happens. So as you can see, I am perfectly disguised as the account Panda, and if I just change my nick back to me, as you can see, it updates very, very smoothly, and this guy over here is none the wiser. So that's it for this plugin tutorial. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you were able to make something cool. Do leave a like, and maybe there'll be more plugin tutorials in the future. Anyway, that's it from me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.